Subscribe to Simply Bitcoin.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome in. You made it to another episode of the Meme Factory podcast. This is stream test number 107, and this evening we are joined by none other than Jimmy Song. Jimmy, say hi. Now, for anybody who doesn't know who Jimmy is, Jimmy, and I find that hard to believe, could you give the elevator speech of who you are in the Bitcoin space? It's pretty accurate. All right, so Jimmy, one of the idiosyncrasies of our stream here is that the people who provide us money for ads require the host to do some of the ad read copy. If you could check your inbox, we sent you the ad copy. And if you can rip right through it, that means that we can get paid and we can move on with the show. That'd be fantastic. Jimmy, Jimmy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the chat is telling us that they can't hear you. Normally, normally, yeah, we can hear you just fine. Jimmy, let me just double check this here. You did have a good thing going. You did. All right. I am gonna change. I'm gonna change an input here real quick. We'll give it a few seconds and then see if the chat can hear you. Can you hang on just a second? Can't hear Sean either. Mother trucker. All right. All right. So Sean, Jimmy, if you could do some talking, and we'll see if they can hear you. All right, chat, help us out here. Can you hear Jimmy? Can you hear Sean and RD? Yeah, but yeah, it's fantastic, right? Hmm. It is. It's been a great show, guys. I don't know what to do. All right. Oh. Hang on a sec. All right, I rebooted the audio mixer to see if that was an issue. We've got all the same settings we normally run on the podcast. And Sean, do some talking. OBS is on. Talk again.
If the audio is going through properly, but we don't actually know if it will.
Because Jimmy had such a good ad read going.
He did. All right. I did change a setting that shows when Jimmy is talking. It's showing me some levels here, so we'll see if we get him going. This is why Svetsky canned you. All right.
They can hear us. There we go. There we go. We're good.
Got it.
We're good to go.
Jimmy, go ahead and rip through that ad copy.
Thanks, Loco.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Jimmy Song, and this episode of Meme Factory Stream, which is just a test stream, is brought to you by my new Christmas album, Jimmy Song Sing Along. It's that time of year again. It's the time we spend with family around the fire and under the mistletoe, calling up beloved relatives, shitcoiners, and fiat maximalists. With the help of my friends at Suscorp LLC, we have made this tradition a little more, shall we say, fun. Now you can sing along to your Christmas favorites while letting everyone know that you were right. This album is jam-packed with hits like It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Shitcoins, Rocking Around the Merkle Tree, Udi Got Run Over by a Reindeer, All I Want for Christmas Is You to Self-Custody, Little Drummer Malaka. I don't even know what that one is. All right. Satoshi the Snowman, ETF is coming to town. I guess, yeah, I got the melody wrong on that one. But Silver Fails, and my personal favorite, Feliz Navidad, the uncensored North Korean version. And there you have it, folks. So this holiday season, don't just deck the halls, deck out your playlist with Jimmy Songs Sing Along. Let each song fill your home with laughter while you stuff your face like MicroStrategy at a Bitcoin buffet.
Hey.
Well done.
Let's go. Let's go.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the one question from our audience was so good this evening, I would be remiss if I didn't let Rope open with that. So it was from, I think from Cooj, if I'm not mistaken, Rope.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Testing. Everybody hear me good? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So this is from a close friend of the stream, Cooj. He says, ask Jimmy Song if when he named his book Programming Bitcoin was Jimmy Hacks Corn on his potential book title list.
Jimmy Hacks Corn on my potential list of possible titles. I wish I had that idea back when I was thinking about it. But sadly, no. And, you know, I needed the word Bitcoin on there so I could get the honey badger animal on the cover, as you may be aware or may not be aware. All O'Reilly books have an animal on the cover. And I was desperate for the honey badger. And my editor let me know that if I had the word Bitcoin in it, that he may be able to get the honey badger on there. I had to justify it, of course.
Yeah, can you hear me? Testing.
Yeah.
Rope. Yeah.
Hello?
We can hear you, Rope.
Thank you.
What are you doing, Rope?
I think he had the end of my ad read or something. I don't know what that was.
Took his mute button off from the YouTube channel.
Good job, Rope.
Yeah, I
Good
was
job.
just looking at the chat. Yeah, thanks. Okay, anyways.
All right, so you got Bitcoin in the title, and they gave you the badger.
Yeah, honey badger, and yeah, that's how I got the honey badger on. Here, let me go get a copy so you guys can see it.
Yeah, go for it.
Here we go. Here we go.
All right.
We can talk about him now. Okay, you
Give me
guys,
crack
his hat
corn.
is just too much. Okay, he's back.
Very good professional job today, everyone. Very professional.
You know, I could still hear you, right? All right, so there is the honey badger right there, and that only took promising them my firstborn and putting the title Bitcoin on it. But yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right, so can we tell our fan that Jimmy Hacks Corn is on the table for a future novel?
Possibly. I think it could be a very cool sci-fi title. You know, I'm thinking sci-fi book. You know, about a corn-based ethanol computer that gets hacked by a crowbar. You know, yeah.
A new Michael Saylor favorite.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so speaking of books, you just cranked out a new one, Fiat Ruins Everything, which is something I think all Bitcoiners know. But, oh yeah, let's get you queued up here on the screen so everybody can see it. Not a honey badger this time, but one of my favorites. Nice little clown nose.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jimmy, this is something that Bitcoiners understand. I'm hoping you did a good job for teaching the layman how fiat ruins everything. Can you give me a little idea of what that book might contain to that end?
Well, there's a lot of things that the book contains, and it goes, from everything from the individual level to, global politics and things like that. And it shows how fiat has ruined all of those things. But honestly, like all of that doesn't matter because the cover is just so good. Look at Ben Franklin with the clown outfit, right? Like that's what says Clown World better than that. And that for me is the reason why you should buy the book, because of the cover just by itself, because that will communicate more to your relatives just by having the cover there than the actual contents of the book, which I think are kind of secondary at this point.
So you've written a few books. How do you go through the process of writing a book? That is not an easy task. You also were one of the authors of Thank God for Bitcoin. I think with Jed, right? Jed Bush and Breedlove, a couple other guys as well. How do you go through the process of just sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to write this book? Is it all Chat GPT, or is it's actually all you?
There's a whole process, and I could get into it, but the writer for the foreword of my book is David Perell, and he's been teaching writing online for many years, and I took his class, and that was actually sort of the instigator for writing that book. So if you haven't taken his class, Rite of Passage, WIRITE of Passage, and you can look up David Perell on Twitter, you could go follow him. But he teaches this process of writing, which is basically this idea of writing from abundance. So you want a lot of ideas there already, and the process of writing is just sort of like combining a lot of the thoughts that you've already had, and not like staring at a blank page and trying to come up with something clever to say, which unfortunately is what a lot of people do when they're trying to write. So I have a whole process now that I've written 5 books on like how to get things done as far as writing goes, and I've fortunately had a pretty good audience that's willing to go and spend money on them. So I try to write for them, and this particular book was actually written for Bitcoin maximalists to, give them an idea of how bad things have gotten and things that they haven't thought that much about, how all of those things have been ruined by fiat money.
Some of the things you talk about fiat money ruining are things that are important to a lot of Bitcoiners. Marriage, family, and relationships being 3 of the main ones. Can you elucidate us a little bit on how fiat ruins those things?
Yeah, there's definitely that's tends to be a pretty popular question, because they're like, how does fiat ruin these things? Well, the first thing to recognize is that fiat money causes a dependency on the state and not on community. So traditionally speaking, we're social beings. We're dependent on community. There's something called Dunbar's number, which is the number of relationships that you can keep in your head before it all sort of breaks down. So that number is around 160. Past 160 relationships, it gets very difficult for most people to manage. There are some extraordinary people that can manage more relationships than that. But for most people, that's about the limit. And that not coincidentally was about the size of a normal village, maybe a few thousand years ago, and so on. So our brains are sort of like made for that, and we lived in communities about that size, and we knew each other and trusted each other, and we had families and relationships and communities. Unfortunately, with fiat money, a lot of that dependency has been relegated to the state. So the way that a lot of politicians get votes and power and so on is by promising free things, things that normally a family would give you. So Social Security, for example, is some sort of monetary security at the end of your life. Typically, what you would do to get some of that would be having children, right? Like if you had kids, then at the end of your life, they would take care of you because you took care of them for a while. And you wouldn't have one or two, because if you have a bad relationship with them, then you're not going to be able to reap the rewards of all that you put in. You would have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that would mitigate the risk, and and you would be taken care of in your older age and so on. But instead, the government takes care of it. So of course, people, take a worse view of marriage and relationships and children. They see it more as like a personal fulfillment kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's permeated all relationships. It's not about community or self-sacrifice or making civilization or community better. It's all about, how happy does this thing make me? And people tend to get very shallow if that's the only sort of axis by which they're able to evaluate anything, instead of thinking about long-term effects and communal considerations. They're just thinking about their own happiness. So of course they're like, oh, you know what? Alcohol makes me happy. Video games make me happy. Porn makes me happy, and they go and do those things instead of relationships and family and children and things like that. So in many subtle ways, fiat money has debased a lot of these things. And I go through in the book, the advent of no-fault divorce. And that started in 1969 with Ronald Reagan, who legalized no-fault divorce in California. Previous to that, you had to give some reason to divorce people. Mental, like getting beat by your husband, or, mental cruelty or something like that. But with that, it was just, it doesn't matter. We'll let any divorce through. And that is part of this ethic of whatever makes me happy, I can do. And that's unfortunately become the norm in a fiat society, because in a sense, fiat money lets you suspend reality. In any normal communal society, a divorce is a big deal, and people have a lot of incentives to not engage in it, because you're part of a community. And if you know anybody that's divorced, you know that it's kind of like a bomb that goes off and affects all of the relationships of the couple that's getting divorced. So in a sense, it's not something that you do lightly, because of all of these other factors. But with the advent of no-fault divorce, you had this ethic of whatever makes me happy, I can do. That's what fiat money produces. It's that exact mentality of, live for today, whatever makes me happy. It's not about self-sacrifice or doing things for the long term or contributing to the community or contributing to civilization. It's all about what makes me happy. And that's unfortunately debased our relationships, our families, reduced population. I mean, there are many more reasons why people don't have as many kids, like housing and, the costs of everything being two of them. But these are just some of the things I talk about in the book.
Jimmy, what is it about fiat that makes these choices more prevalent or more preferable than the choices that humans were making in the past? Like, what is it about the fiat? Is it just the fact that it's constantly debased, or is it some kind of knock-on secondary effect? What are you pinpointing as the reason for fiat having these effects?
Yeah, the big reason is that fiat money is essentially stealing from the future. You're bringing consumption forward. All fiat money, at least in the current system, is debt, right? It's all bringing consumption forward. It's whether it's the federal deficit or state budget deficits, or companies issuing bonds, or you getting a mortgage or using a credit card. It's all debt, and debt is essentially bringing consumption forward. So what fiat money lets you do is paper over problems now in exchange for more problems later. So you bring consumption forward by printing more money, for example, stealing from other people, and so on. And that lets you sort of not experience the natural consequences of whatever choices that you might want to make. So, for example, getting divorced was very financially devastating. It still kind of is, but for a lot of women in particular back in back before, I guess, like 1969 or whatever, getting divorced would mean that, okay, well, I don't have a job, so now I have to go get one, and so on. And it was financially very difficult, and those were sort of papered over by a lot of these social programs and so on. So you have safety nets, welfare, healthcare insurance, and things like that. That give you sort of like a safety net that normally a community would provide. But if you're acting badly, a community doesn't tend to support you when you're doing that. But for a government, they don't really care. As long as they get your vote and your support, they'll provide you with whatever, and however much they need to steal from the future, they will, to let you indulge in whatever fantasies that you might have. And this is a constant theme around fiat money, is that you're able to suspend reality for a while, right? Whether it's at a personal level, at like a company level, at a government level, you're able to go and do things that don't make any money or like any financial sense, and have them work for a while because of essentially debt that's fueling all of that consumption. So, for example, we have a lot of zombie companies, right? A lot of companies that really don't make that much money or any money at all, or they're losing money, and they're able to be subsidized by fiat money through loans and things like that, and bailouts. And they're able to survive without providing a good or service to the market. And essentially, this trickles down all the way down to the individual level, where you're able to make choices that you want to make, even and not suffer necessarily all the consequences that you should that you would in a free market. And that ultimately results in a lot of bad choices being made, a lot of economically destructive choices that are made that crumble civilization.
You used a term that it took me a while to wrap my head around a few years back. It was pulling consumption forward. Always looking for better explanations on how that works in reality, because it just doesn't make sense, like how you can pull from the future. Could you give us your best explanation of what that is and what it is actually doing?
Yeah, so when you get into debt, right? So let's take something that everyone knows something about, like student loans, right? Like when you go to college, you are consuming college, right? It's a consumer good. You're not providing value to anybody. You are consuming something. Hopefully you're learning something useful, maybe job skills or something like that, but you take out a giant loan to do so. And when you take out that loan, and student loans are especially pernicious because they're not dischargeable in bankruptcy, but you consume for 4 years, and then you have to pay it off later. And this tends to be a giant sort of like albatross around most people's necks. You have to make this payment all the time, and it instead of paying for it up front, which is what you would do with savings, you pay for it by being enslaved later, and by paying it off some amount at a time. Credit cards are the same way. I can go buy a really nice car and not and not pay from savings. You can just sort of pay it over time. But this is bringing consumption forward, because essentially you're wanting to use something now before you have savings, and this is how savings is how it always used to work. You had to save enough money to go get something, but with all of these debt facilities, you're able to consume right now and pay it off later. And this is not just happening at the individual level. Obviously, we're doing that with credit cards and student loans and even housing. But it's happening at the company level. They're issuing bonds and doing leverage takeovers of other companies. You're consuming lots of stuff and paying it off later through revenue and profit and things like that. And certainly at the government level, you're using tax revenues of the future, and you're allowing budget deficits to get to trillions of dollars. and paying that off later. This is how you bring consumption forward. It's really kind of an accounting trick, especially since all of this debt is money printed out of nothing. But this is essentially the thing that we've all gotten addicted to under a fiat economy is this ability to do that.
It sounds like a scheme devised to just make everything in the world worse, which is weird because it's just money, right? Like it's what we use to exchange, and the question I'm getting after is like, can money itself be evil? Right? Is this are we watching evil in the form of dollars? Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, the thing about fiat currency that's so pernicious is that if you have hard currency, if you have sound money,
pernicious is when it tastes good, right?
Huh?
Pernicious is when it tastes good, right?
Pernicious.
That's when you bake a potato as a pernicious potato.
So when you have sound money and you're going for a loan, somebody has to give up consumption now to give you a loan, right? Like, so if I'm so Bitcoin is sound money. If I lend you 1 Bitcoin, I need to have that 1 Bitcoin to lend to you, right? I am foregoing consumption of that 1 Bitcoin so that you can use it for some hope of profit later. And that's a method by which capital is supposed to flow or flows in a sound money economy, is that every time you bring consumption forward, somebody else gives up consumption, right? So when you're taking out a loan from me, you're bringing consumption forward, or you're using that consumption to like produce something or make a profit later, hopefully, so that you can pay me back. But somebody else it's a zero. It has to be that this consumption is zero sum. I give up consumption so that you can consume ahead of time, and then you give up consumption later and give me, return to me the consumption that I forewent. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the entire concept of opportunity cost. I have money that I could be using, but instead I am lending it out. That's how most people think loans work, but that's not how it works in a fiat economy at all. Loans in a fiat economy is just no opportunity cost at all. So think about a mortgage, right? And mortgage rates are higher now, but think about like 3 years ago, right? Mortgage rates were about 3% for 30 years. If it actually worked the way under sound money, somebody would have to forego $500,000 for 30 years at 3% interest for you to get that mortgage. Now, would you ever make that side of the trade, right? Like, would you ever lend to somebody $500,000 at 3% over 30 years? Hell no. There is no investment manager in the world that would do that. Why? Because the term is too long, the amount is too big, and the interest rate is too low. But that happened all day long. So what is going on? Well, all of that money is printed on your behalf. It doesn't come from somebody's opportunity cost. It comes through expansion of the money supply. And that's what all loans are in a fiat monetary system. All loans. Like, there's a few exceptions, like Unchained Capital being like one of the few, where somebody actually is foregoing opportunity to lend you money. But vast majority of loans in a fiat economy come out of thin air. The bank just makes it for you, and that's the perniciousness that I'm talking about.
You got me thinking about. So for example, my mom, I was talking to her the other day, and she was saying how when she went to college, she would work in the summer and then she would work during the school year, and that would pay for her college, She, and she was born in the 50s, right? So she was going to college in like the 70s, early 80s. So nowadays, no kid can go to college and work in the summers and then have like a minimum wage job at McDonald's that's paying for their school. And then if you look back in time too, you go back to our grandparents' era, the same thing. Like a guy could work in the coal mine, he'd have a wife who stayed at home, they had like 6 kids, and he'd have the house paid off in 7 years, something like that. And so it just makes me think that because of the expansion of money or the way that loans can be created out of thin air, it's almost as if the cost of things, it just goes up to the easiness of lending the money. However people will lend money, that's where the cost will eventually end up at. And then as money becomes easier to lend, then the cost will continue to match. And that's why we're seeing that it's almost impossible now to operate in a world where you don't have credit, because there's been so much credit created that now a kid to go to school and to actually get a good job, well, how is he ever going to pay for the school? And how would someone ever buy the house in cash if they don't use a loan, you know? And we've gotten, it's almost flipped backwards, where you used to be able to work for something and buy it in cash, or work for your school at the same time you're going to school. And now all of a sudden, because loans can be created out of thin air, then that price will just find that upper limit of where loans will be created.
Mm-hmm. And this is the thing that I think this is sort of like the dynamic at play here. It's that when people save and then they spend, or they know the cost and they're kind of paying it off as you go along, like your mother's story or whatever. Mm-hmm. They tend to be a lot more discerning about price, right? They're like, okay, well, this costs this much. Well, I have this much saved up. I can't afford that, so they don't buy it, or they forego consuming more expensive goods and instead they get less expensive goods because it's coming out of their savings. But if it's coming out of debt, and they have very high time preference anyway, and all these loans are generally given to a lot of very high time preference people, they don't really care about the cost that much, because they discount the future so much that they don't care, right? That I might as well get like the next level up car, because it's not coming from their savings. It's not something that they've worked for, because it's something that they can just get right now. And your desires sort of take over, and the limit of your savings isn't really there anymore, because the amount that you can spend is just based on the amount of debt you can get. And the debt you can get is oftentimes tremendous, especially for something like student loans. So that dynamic that you're describing of people, getting borrowing as much as they want, right? That causes the price to go up, because people are willing to pay more because they haven't worked for it, right? They haven't saved up for it. They haven't put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. So of course they're going to be just like, oh, you know what? I'll just get the best thing that I can get. And that's exactly what ends up happening, is that they consume way more than they should, or that they can afford, because they're discounting the future.
Yeah, or even just saying, hey, once I graduate from this school, or once I graduate from this program, how many years is it going to take me to pay back this loan? When I get my job, if I know what I'm going to get paid about for the next 5 to 10 years after I get the job. How long will it take me to actually pay back that loan? And most people aren't doing that type of math when they're pulling out a big student loan.
Yeah, and in a ways they probably don't need to, right? Because look what's happened. They just forgave a bunch of loans. Guess what you're doing to this next generation? They're all going to take out even more loans, because at some point they're going to get a bailout, and they're going to be like, well, you gave my parents a bailout. Why aren't you giving me a bailout? This is exactly what happened with the Wall Street bailouts. Is, you give bailouts to companies, and then they have riskier and riskier behavior that you're incentivizing. And this is what's happening at every level. Is people have more appetite for risk as they get bailed out through essentially dilution. And what you said before about like that coal miner, right? That, 2 generations ago that was able to be the sole breadwinner and have a house that fits 6 kids or whatever. Like that's the reality today, is that all of this money printing, all of this loans and things like that are expanding the money supply, it's essentially made all of us extremely poor. And we just don't recognize it as poorness, because, oh my gosh, I have an iPhone and this is a technological marvel. Yes, it is, but you've actually gotten much poorer, right? Almost every family everywhere in the world now has both parents working.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can't afford a single, breadwinner household. Like they sell it as women's liberation or whatever, but it's really just women's slavery. You've now, instead of working for the family, they're now working for some corporation. Like everyone has gotten poorer. Like think about housing too, right? Nobody can afford a house. If you're like 25, 2 generations ago, you could afford a house. Now you have to, it's like 8 times your annual income or something like that. Back then it was like 1 times your annual income. Like that's you're just getting poorer because of all of the monetary expansion that's happening.
Well, let's pull that forward. So think about Bitcoin. Okay, if we were on a Bitcoin standard, because this is what most people say is, how will loans work out when you have a hard money standard like Bitcoin? When the price of Bitcoin is going, like the price of Bitcoin goes up every single year, on average, right? And so what most people say, well, how will loans work? But the more that I think about it, the more that I think that the cost of all the things that we use in proportion to our wages will actually go down, and we might not have to use as many loans, or the loans might be a lot shorter term, a short-term loan that's not drawn out for so many years, and then you can't pay it back because the price of Bitcoin's outpaced how much money you could ever possibly earn. I don't know. What are your thoughts on how loans will work in the future, or if they go away completely, or?
Well, so first of all, like we're a society addicted to loans, right? Like everything works on, literally everything works on loans.
Yes.
And that is has become sort of like normal for everybody. That wasn't the case under sound money. It's only become normalized because we've been under a fiat money standard for over 100 years now. But in ancient times, and even a few hundred years ago, people saved and then bought. That was completely normal, And if you did get loans, it was from your friends and family, and it was based on a relationship and not based on some exorbitant interest rate from like a loan shark or something like that. That was what loans were, and people still do that today. I'm sure many people watching the show got a loan from their mom or dad or generous relative to like put a down payment on a house or something like that. That sort of stuff is normal. But to say that you need institutionalized loans for an economy to run is completely false. People have been running off of savings for a very long time, and that's a normal way of doing things. And if you have to bring consumption forward in order to do anything, just tells you that something is wrong with your business. And we've sort of normalized this this sort of like ideal startup that's like losing money every year for like 20 years before making money or whatever. That is not the norm. That is
it's basically
that is a zombie turning into a human or something. Like it's completely crazy that that's become a normal thing. What it should be is people saving and then using those savings. And you need to provide value first, and then you get to consume value. Not you get to consume value first, and I'll provide value later. And then you end up with a lot of societal leeches, which who don't do anything. And then next thing you know, you have like civilization collapse. You need people that are providing value as sort of like an initial thing. And I think people want to do that. It's just the system is set up so that you're consuming first and then slave later.
Well, that's what it seems like money. And I know I've been talking a lot, guys, so sorry, but it's been fun. That's what it seems that money has been the reason for money is it shouldn't be backed by anything else besides your work, right? The work that you do, that's what your money should be backed by. All the work that you've done, that you provided as value to the world, should be, you can save that in your money. In the old days, in the Stone Ages, if you go out and you fish a bunch of fish and there's no one to save them with, and you can't freeze them, well, then you lose that work that you did. It's gone. But then once money came around, now you can sell those fish, which is the work that you've done, and that backs the money that you have. So you're not pulling. It wasn't meant to pull it forward. It was to be a store of value and to be able to exchange that work that you've done in the past. And it seems like that's the whole reason why money was invented in the first place, was to be able to just back the work that you're doing. And then now it's flipped, and everyone wants to just money. No one really understands what the purpose of money is, or what money really even is at all.
Yeah, I mean, money has become sort of like this manipulated thing. But you're right. Like what it used to be was an accounting of how much value you've provided to the community that you're in. Now it's become sort of like, dictated by some central party, and this is why we call it fiat. It's let there be. That means somebody is saying let there be money, and they're saying, okay, well, we're going to arbitrarily say that these people provided value when they didn't. And this is what rent seeking is. This is what like the entire banking system is. It's people asserting that they provided value without actually having provided value. And we get a lot of that in an economy with fiat money, and I call them in the book rent seekers. We get a lot of rent seeking, a lot of people that don't provide value but collect checks anyway, and those are the people that are ruining society. And unfortunately, the best and the brightest people in the world are becoming the biggest rent seekers. They are subtracting from society rather than adding to society. Like 100 years ago, you had the Nikola Teslas and Thomas Edisons of the world. That's what people, aspire to be, like great inventors, people that made things. What do people want to be now? They want to be Henry Kissinger or Charlie Munger, right? Like two guys that died recently. They want to manage money or get into power, right? Like that's their aspiration. Neither of those guys contributed anything. They didn't invent anything. They moved money around. They played geopolitics, right? Like, to me, these are the ultimate rent seekers, and these are, in a sense, like the best that we produce is like that. This is what people aspire to be, rather than like the Edisons and the Teslas of the world that invented a whole bunch of stuff, provided a tremendous amount of value to society. Like those are the people, like in a sound money economy, that get really rich because they've clearly provided value. But
didn't work out so good for Tesla.
Fiat money, in a fiat money economy, you get Nancy Pelosi and Hunter Biden making many millions of dollars because they're just in the right position, despite like having provided nothing of value. In fact, detracting a ton of value from society.
All right, so I think it's about time in the show to give out scores for the evening, and Rusty has been generous and volunteered for this task. So, Rusty, when you get a moment, go ahead and give out everybody's scores so far.
Yeah, g'day. I had an incident at home, clean up some, poo from children. I've missed my. I'm back. Give scores, but I've been listening. Jimmy, I'm going to start with your score because you're in the top right-hand corner of my screen. And your score has just been all.
He cut out at exactly the right time.
Exactly. What's Jimmy's score?
You're saying Red Cowboy.
I heard Red Cowboy. I don't know.
This is not my fault this time.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, I think Rusty's got some bad signal there. Check your Wi-Fi signal there.
The one time we don't bust
back,
Rusty's
back.
balls about having a bad mic, he actually has a bad mic.
Yeah.
That's not possible.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Red cowboy hat to finish off what I was going to say. A red cowboy hat. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's my score.
A red cowboy hat?
That's the
Nice.
score. No questions. Greg, new set of headphones as your score. Yellow has done a tremendous job today. It's been non-stop yellow all episode, like me. So you get a cigar. And Sean, your score is say hi to your mum for me. You mentioned her earlier. Hope she's doing well.
I'll tell her
Hi to
Rusty
your
says
mum. Thanks, man. Rope, phenomenal job interjecting now and then. Your score is a rainbow with a bucket of Bitcoin at the end of it.
Is that an Irish joke? Okay, never mind.
Nice. RD, well played, sir. Your score is a mustache, a real one. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's it. No worries.
Amazing work,
Yeah.
Glad I
Rusty.
could help.
Thank you.
There we go.
I'm so confused. Okay.
It's all right. It's just,
Perfect.
you got the best score of the bunch, I think, Jim.
It's not a number, but okay, sure.
All right, let's move over to RD and get his question knocked out here before we. Sorry. We got a question from Rusty. We're gonna have to go to him. Go ahead, Rusty.
Yeah, hey, I did want to ask a question during all the serious talk, but you were talking about Dunbar number earlier, and I just
Mhm.
wanted to know, is Greg one of your 160 relationships, and who did he bump out in order to get his position?
Yeah, I guess he's in there now. I think the person that got bumped out was Tone Vase. Yeah.
That's a good trade.
No, I mean,
That's harsh.
I think I mean, like it's a very fluid list. It's next week he's probably gonna bump you back out. But I'm
Well,
just saying.
now that you've remembered Tone Vase, though, have you bumped out Greg again, or like how does this?
Yeah, there's only so much room. I don't have the brain capacity to think about the actual Dunbar relationships I have.
You good?
That's it. No, that's it. That's it. Thanks, Greg.
All right,
Thanks
fantastic.
for waiting.
Fantastic job. All right, so moving on to RD, he's got the most famous question of the evening. So RD, when you get a moment, light him up.
Isn't it a bit early for my question?
You know, it is a little earlier than we normally do your question, but it looks like Rusty's got a question here, so you're gonna have to wait anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought if RD's not ready because he's still preparing his notes.
Can
and
anyone
whatever,
hear Rusty right now? Can anyone hear?
Oh my gosh, we're going with that one.
I
All
wish I
right,
could
cool,
hear
cool.
him. I mean,
No worries.
it's been all night. He's been
Yeah.
in and out.
Rope, can you hear
I'm
Rusty?
hearing him.
Jimmy's probably the only
Who's
one
Rusty?
that can hear me.
Oh, never mind.
Can anyone hear Rusty at
Jimmy.
all?
I can
You can
hear
hear me,
Rusty.
right, Jimmy? Yeah, there we go. Good job. Thanks, Jimmy. Okay,
Okay, I got a
on,
question. You were the only one that got an invite to that mining party with the Jack Dorsey thing. What did you think of the announcement? And have you got some skepticisms? Are you like just all good? They're 100% good. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Well, I mean, I usually take a wait and see approach to anything new. It's and this one is no exception. But I mean, Luke has been an advocate of Bitcoin for a while, and he used to run the Eligius pool for a while. And this is sort of a continuation. So they're committed to implementing Stratum 2 as soon as possible, doing Lightning payments, stuff like that. I can see this thing becoming way more popular as a lot of hash rate has moved to America already. So I think the last stats I saw were like 40%. So from a business perspective, it makes total sense, right? Like you have a lot more miners in the United States. You probably should have more America-based pools that sort of like correspond to that. Now, are they a positive for Bitcoin? I think all competition is good. Are they, is it like, what are their policies going to be? How are they going to execute things like that? Those all remain to be seen. I asked certain questions about, how's the payout going to be, and how, generally as a pool, you need about 1% of the global hash rate power for it to start making sense. They're not there yet, but I think they'll get there fairly shortly. But this is part, I think, of a much larger play. So, Jack Dorsey's Spiral, that whole group has been working on an ASIC that's going to be open source and able to be bought at a consumer level and integrated into all kinds of chip, circuit boards and stuff like that. And they're optimizing for reliability to make it more consumer friendly. So, this is just part one of a larger mining ecosystem overhaul that they're attempting. It's a it's a heavy lift, and it's not going to be a short-term thing. This is going to be a multi-year kind of project. And a lot of mining companies are known to go bankrupt during like bear markets and stuff, and there's like usually some level of malinvestment during bull cycles and stuff. So again, it's a wait and see approach. I'm cheering for them certainly, but I'm not going to say that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread or anything. They may well end up being that, but it's a wait and see approach for me.
I got a question. If nobody, okay, great. So I'm kind of like obsessed with like logos as it is. I don't know if you've, anyways, it's not important. So the logo, I've noticed it leaves a little bit to desire, but it also makes me, I don't know, kind of hungry. It's just the way that it's shaped in the circular with the spiral and the thing. Is there anything going on with that logo that we should know about, or anything?
Is it because it looks like a whole heap of tomahawks, a whole heap of tomahawk steaks? Is that where you're getting at?
That's well, no, I mean, I guess it's all depends on your perspective. I was thinking more of like like it's kind of like an eye, but not the eye that you see out of, but it also expands. I'm trying to be family friendly here.
Kind of like the Cardano.
Oh, you're talking about
like
an
a
anus,
chocolate starfish.
like a shrinker.
Thank you,
No
Rusty,
worries.
being on the nose there. Yeah.
All right. So here's my interpretation. So first of all, the name Ocean is quite clever. And I don't know if you caught this on the live stream, but this was something that I thought they failed in communicating properly. You need permission to join a pool. You don't need a permission to join an ocean, right? To go jump in an ocean. You can do that anytime you want. That's sort of the idea behind the name. So I like the name because it's a difference between jumping in a pool. You need permission by whoever owns the pool, but nobody owns the ocean. You can just go in and jump into it whenever you want. All right. As far as the logo, to me, it looks like a bunch of mining picks, right? And this is like the idea is a mining pool. You have 6 of these like sort of mining picks, and that represents the pool, and then you have something kind of like a snowflake-ish like blue thing, sort of giving you the impression of water. And I think that's what they were going for. I'm not a brand expert or a marketing expert, but I mean, like I thought the name was clever and it's easy to pronounce, not like Eligius. From what I heard, Jack Dorsey said, the companies that I make are very simple to pronounce and easy to understand, right? Block, square, spiral, something like that. He said you can't do Eligius because like there are 7 different pronunciations of it, and like no one knows what it is. That Saint Eligius is the patron saint of mining, which is why Luke chose that as a faithful Catholic when he started that. But ocean is a lot easier to pronounce. It's a lot more conceptually easy to understand, and that's the direction that they've gone in with that.
Can I just push back on something?
Oh, go ahead.
How are you going to say you're not a brand expert? Sir, you have basically trademarked that cowboy hat. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's iconic at this point.
It is, but it was a complete accident. It wasn't something that was like, oh, you know what?
Is it just glued? It's just glued to your head. You can't take it off, can you? It's stuck on there, right?
I just tried it and it worked. And, sometimes you just need a little luck, and I had a tremendous amount of luck with this hat, and it's brought me a lot of good opportunities. So what can I say?
So was Ocean Mining responsible for the pool FUD that was going on?
I don't know.
I don't. Just ruined my question. He's ruined my question, Sean. Far out.
Oh, I thought your hand was just up for no reason. Still,
it happens. No, this is a freshly raised Rusty hand. Why don't you go ahead, Rusty? Ask the question.
It's a good question that Sean brought up. Have you mined in the past, and how many backyard pools of water have you destroyed?
I have mined in
not
the
more
past.
than Greg.
I mined back in 2015, and this was it might have been 2014. Yeah, so I got one of the Antminer S1s. This was their first manufactured product, and I only bought it because they literally had them at the conference I went to. And this was back in the days when you had to wait 6 months for delivery from any ASIC manufacturer. I was like, oh, I want to try this. So I bought a couple. I think I made my money back, and then I sold them on eBay. So I made a little bit of a profit. And the only reason I got rid of them was because my wife said it was too loud. So it's that was back in 2014. I mined about 1.1.5 Bitcoin, something like that. So I guess that's depending on how many transactions that would be maybe the size of one of the Great Lakes, in terms of water consumption. Yeah.
Impressive.
I don't know.
All right. Can I throw it to Artie yet, or is Rusty going to complain here?
No, one more question. Jimmy, do you know how to ride horses?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I was just checking.
But I am all hat, no cattle, though. I mean, I'm not a very good horseman. So yeah.
We'll see it. We'll see.
I have no further questions.
We'll see in Las Vegas the week after Unconfiscatable for the roping event that they're doing down there.
Okay, I won't be there.
All right, go ahead, RD.
All right, Artie, check those notes.
Yeah, I got my notes. Okay, Jimmy. If the meme factory did exist, and we all know it doesn't, which one of us would you like? Which one of us would you retweet? Which one of us would you mute? And which one of us would you zap?
Okay, you're like mixing a lot of these social media platforms, right? You can only zap on Nostr, and retweeting is not really a thing anymore. It's reposting on X, and it's not really liking on Nostr anymore. It's like you get whatever emoji you want. So it's a little bit of a confusing question, but
Thank you, Greg.
I mean, like
this is a test stream. We'll work it out.
Okay.
Demonetized.
All right. So I am definitely retweeting Yellow because I think he looks hilarious. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I'll mute Rusty because his mic is so bad.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to abuse that notation. I will block Rope. I will block Rope because of your profile pic. I'm a Christian. I don't want middle fingers showing. I don't need to see that.
Come on, man.
He's actually sniffing his fingers. Yeah.
Thank you, Yellow. I'm
Sniffing.
sniffing my. Wait. Wait.
All right, and I'll like Sean's, and I will comment on Greg. There you go.
Thorough.
So you're not gonna follow me? You're not gonna follow me on Twitter? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I only follow 50 people, so I use it to compile my newsletter. So that if you're not like posting Bitcoin,
just say no. You're not going to follow him.
Yeah, just say no.
No. How's that?
Thank you. The most direct answer you've given all night.
I would say, Jimmy, I would say you should have blocked him for the hat comment he made earlier in the show.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going for there. That was actually Yellow who said that.
No.
All right, and Jimmy, if you would be so kind to tell our viewers and listeners where they can find you on the interwebs, what projects you might be working on currently that you think they might find interesting.
Yeah, so I have my new book out, Fiat Ruins Everything. You could go to fiatruinseverything.com. I am only shipping to the US at the moment if you want a signed copy, but you can go get a copy on Amazon, on Bitcoin Magazine, and I think you can buy the audio version on Audible and so on. You can find me at Jimmy Song on X. I also have a Nostr account. Good luck finding it. There's also, I'm on a bunch of different platforms as well, but you can find me on X and then like go from there. My newsletter is jimmysong.substack.com. Please subscribe if you're interested. I am planning to teach a Taproot Schnorr, Musig, and Frost class in about a month, and I'm doing a programming blockchain seminar in Dubai in February. So if you're interested, go to programmingblockchain.com.
All right, and then last portion of the evening, we're going to send it on over to Sean to talk about something fairly important to us.
Jimmy, do you know what happens at block height 840,000?
Yeah, the bit shift operator goes one more to the right for the block reward.
The bit shift operator. Here we go. The halving, correct, is what happens. And we, the Meme Factory, are throwing the halving party in El Salvador, April 3rd through the 5th. Just an hour away from El Zonte from Bitcoin Beach. We got a lot of good people coming down, a lot of Bitcoiners. We're inviting you to come on down to El Salvador. I think you've been down there already, haven't you?
I've been down there 4 times in the last 2 years.
And so make it number 5 in April. Come to the Bitcoin halving party. And we can have a blast down there with all the Bitcoiners and celebrate Bitcoin in Bitcoin country for the halving, because that's where we deserve to be. That's where Bitcoin deserves to be.
Okay, you're having it April 3rd to the 5th, you said?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay. The current estimate for the halving is right around April 23rd or so. So you're going to be about 20 days
We're optimistic,
early.
Jimmy.
Yeah, we're optimistic,
We're
Jimmy.
optimistic.
Yeah, did
Okay.
you were just at the ocean mining. There's a lot of hash rate that's coming online.
Okay,
right?
you would need about 8 minutes and 50-second blocks from here
I
to
know.
the end.
Are you on timechaincalendar.com right now?
I'm on Clark Moody dashboard,
Clark
so
Moody,
that
yeah.
he tends to have pretty
What are you,
good
the block
stats on
police?
that. But
Yeah.
he says about 8 minutes, probably 8:40-ish
Yeah.
to get to about April 5th. Yeah, that's
doable.
That's gonna be rough.
Doable.
Totally
Yeah.
doable.
That's it.
Russ, did you have another question for us?
Yeah, actually, well, we've got something somewhat technical on the show. This has been a controversial question because we don't know whether the block halving happens at 840,000 or 840,001.
I believe so block 0 is the Genesis block, so I think it's 840,000. So yeah, so it's 0 based, not 1 based.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had someone that
Excellent.
acted like they were smart, but they were wrong before. I can't remember who it was.
Well, I don't quote me on this. That's my guess, just because I know that block 0
we don't have
is
to
the
block zero.
Genesis.
Genesis block.
It's recorded,
Yeah.
so we can come back to it anytime. All right, Jimmy, you've been very generous with your time with us this evening. Just want to say thank you for coming out tonight and spending a little time with us. And thanks to all our listeners for coming out this evening.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.